feel like there's maybe a gift in suffering or allowing ourselves to just be with that. I feel the trap comes where we get addicted to suffering. Can you speak to that?
There's a belief behind an addiction because the addiction implies that it's something we don't want to have or it's something we want to let go of. If I'm using that, what am I filling up with it? What is it taking the place of? What is it saving me from? What is it helping me avoid? What is it giving me?
Welcome to today's Awake and Aware podcast. And today's guest is someone very dear to my heart, very special person. Her name is Tammy. She is a beautiful soul and a writer. Her first book, You Matter, was published a few years ago. And in this book, Tammy helps us reveal the beauty that is oftentimes hidden behind the veil of suffering or fear or insecurities. And just a few lines from the book, You Matter. You matter because you exist. You matter as you are. Your voice matters, even if no one listens or agrees with you. You are a worthy, beautiful masterpiece that has been created from every part of your being. You are worthy of love and respect in all relationships, most importantly, the relationship you have with yourself. There's a lot of wisdom just in this short paragraph, in these few words and sentences. So if you're up for a quick and deep read, go ahead and get the book. I'll leave the link in the description below. So without any further ado, welcome Tammy to the Awake and Aware podcast. So how did we meet?
Yeah, we met the very first book club, which was by chance, right? Because you're in the freedom community, but I hadn't seen you in there.
Right.
Like I didn't meet you there.
I don't have the availability at that specific time, so I was never on a call. And then when my ex had told me about that, there's this book club, these are your people, you might want to join. Here's the link. I was like, okay, great. I feel like there was a lot of connection between what you were talking about, what I'm saying, and what the book club is about that we're talking about as well. And I was instantly in. I was just like, oh, this is great. These are my people indeed. So your ability to have compassion obviously comes from the depth of the, whether we want to call it suffering or the experiences that you have garnered throughout your life, and just being in these depths of just ick and desperations and things like that. I don't feel that people who have not experienced the profound depths of suffering and or some sort of a struggle, really, I don't feel that those of us, I wouldn't say those people, those of us have as great of an ability to be compassionate. So like when I hear people talk about I can't feel compassionate, and or when I saw myself earlier in the days be a lot less compassionate with people, was out of the space for me of a judgment of myself, coming from the brain being brought up in certain ways, and then B, not maybe having enough experience of what I have gone through versus what those other people have gone through, as we were talking also on the call today. So I hear your story, and I'm like, oh my gosh, wow. Whew. And I believe that you talk a lot about this in your book, in your first book. Is that true? Is that safe to say? Yeah.
Yeah. That book, it was written when I was at my lowest, but it was written in the energy of what I believed was the truth. I knew I was living. I knew that the self-loathing, self-abandonment, self-sabotage, the choices I was making in lower relationships, I knew they were the lie about me. My greatest suffering was because I knew that I was actively living a lie. I knew I was in it. I knew I was the driver. I knew I was the one pulling up the directions. Like, I knew that. So it was like torture, because before I got out of it, I was just trying to be more loving, thinking that that was going to change my situation. And you can't. It's not going to change other people.
So this disparity between your knowing, as you say, the knowing, like you knew that was that way, and the not being sure of yourself. That seems like how do you know? Like, some people may ask that you say you knew it. And how did you know? Was there a level of awareness that was
Yeah,
present?
that's it's so interesting to me now, because now in what I know now in my awareness,
Yeah.
when I go back and do inner work and really journey back and really sit with, I do a lot of kind of shadow work with myself, but soul retrieval. And I go back and I sit with myself at,
Mhm.
5, 6, 7 years old. And for a while I had to do it, and it just made me very sad, because I felt sad for her, for the little girl.
Mm.
But my compassion for myself had to catch up, because for a while I was still blaming myself. But yeah, it's the coming back out of it. And I wanted to say, to your point of in terms of like expressing it, it's like somebody can tell me on paper how to do something. They could give me really good directions and say step 1, 2, 3. But if it's something of the heart and it's of life, if that person hasn't had the experience, they're doing their best, and they could from their heart be wanting nothing more than to give me the path in the right way and tell me how to feel better, or whatever the case might be. But if they haven't felt it, it's it just doesn't, I don't want to say genuine, because they're genuinely trying, but it's just different than somebody who's really had the experience. It
Right.
feels
It doesn't have the depth. So, in that sense, I would say that the fact that as we were talking about earlier today, is that the reason that, or the yeah, maybe the reason that we're suffering is to gather within us a lot more of a depth for true compassion and true love and true self-expression, authenticity, and with those, basically raising the bar of our awareness every time we do that. I feel that maybe those are like the actual and more important things. And so oftentimes, we are so quick to say, "Oh, doesn't feel good. I'm not gonna do this." And little do we know that we're actually rubbing ourselves off of this experience, if that was the case. But again, I mean, that's the actual realness of our experience really becomes through that suffering. And I'm not saying that we can't have a realness of experience with joy and love and all that stuff. Absolutely, we can.
Mhm.
And I feel like it's important to have kind of a both. It's like when you look at the symbol of yin and yang, it's like one cannot coexist without the other. If we didn't know what dark or night meant, we couldn't know of light or day,
Right.
because we wouldn't have anything to compare it to.
Right. Mhm.
So, I feel like there's maybe a gift in suffering, or allowing ourselves to just be with that. I feel the trap comes where we get addicted to suffering. Can you speak to that?
Ooh. Oh. Yep. So, okay. So let's just look at that. And so for me, in my own life, how I operate is, if I feel like I need something, I assess, do I need something? Like, I need food. I
Right,
need water.
right.
Need to me is my literal life. Those are the only That's the only category that I allow needs to operate within my system of my decision making out in the world.
Mhm.
Then there's wanting, desire, all of
Yeah.
that. There's a belief behind an addiction. If I'm addicted to something, because the addiction implies that it's something that isn't utmost. It's something we don't want to have, or it's something we want to let go of. If I'm using that, what am I filling up with it? What is it taking the place of? What is it saving me from? What is it helping me avoid? What is it giving me?
Mm-hmm.
And if we're willing, like, first of all, if we're awake, that means our eyes are open. That means we see what's in front of us, so we can't deny it. So number one, if we're awake, denial's out the door. So choice number one, okay, awake. Okay. So then once we're awake, okay, I'm awake now. Okay, now I'm going to open my eyes. I'm going to look around and I'm going to be aware. And then once I'm aware, then I'm going to assess, okay, now what needs to happen in the day? What am I doing? What in my awareness, is it raining? Do I need a hat? Do I need whatever? And so, but if we're addicted to the suffering, I mean, number one, I think we feel that we deserve it. It's usually my starting point. If I'm looking at it for myself or for someone else, if there's an addiction or a need for something, why do I think I deserve it? Especially if it's self-defeating. Why do I think I'm worthy of deserving this? And why am I choosing that? What do I need to feel worthy to do in order to move past hiding from it in my addiction? What am I numbing out? What am I silencing?
Yes, yes. Like, what is in the root of that feeling, which is again like where the awareness comes in. As soon as we start asking these questions, I feel that we can no longer hide whatever the mind is trying to hide and protect us from. As one of my teachers says, the mind is a terrible master, but it's a faithful servant. And I think Andre Ducom's mentioned it also on his podcast, just to give him credit as well. Because it's a great way to say, hey, you know what, our mind is there to protect us, and that's its number one job. And so it does it to a fault, oftentimes, if we can say it that way. And so if the mind is used to protecting us certain way from the childhood, it's going to create whatever objective it needs to rationalize why so and so is true or dangerous. And from the perspective, then we obviously create further concepts to protect ourselves, which then we can get back into the addiction, because now we're hopelessly almost paying attention to these protective mechanisms. Like we're constantly running these programs of the protective mechanisms as we go throughout the day. And that's what I would say is addiction. Is not that you don't have a right to obviously not feel safe. Obviously, yes, you do, and it's important. And I feel like it comes from that need to wanting to protect yourself is where the addiction starts growing, until we become aware of it. And we don't become aware of it unless we ask questions. So like,
gotta be awake to ask questions.
exactly. It's like what comes first, the chicken or the egg kind of thing.
That's what's hard, because my second book is being written. It's another reason why this aligns so much, because for me it's starting like it's love first, and then awareness is the second part of the book, and then it's just more about like, and I jotted down some notes just as I was thinking about this. And it's so we wake up, we become aware, and then compassion has to come in, because once we make the choice to be aware, okay, now you're aware, so now you see everything. And so that's where it's oh no way, go back to sleep or find an addiction to avoid what we just became aware of. So we might pick up an addiction or any form of denial, or like, no way, man, to what we became aware of. So that it's why like that loving compassion is the
Catalyst.
Yeah. Without loving compassion, we can't forgive the parts of awareness, the things we become aware to that are, from other people, things we need to forgive of external things. We can't forgive. We can't, like, loving compassion feeds everything that we need to do within what we come to when we wake up and become aware. And then
Yeah, I love it.
because from there, the compassion that's then within that is going to, acceptance and of yourself and of others. And that's where it gets hard when we want to condense time to talk, to give a podcast, to do something, because it can go off on, we could start right now talking about, like, okay, well, what are all the tools to deal with everything you become aware of? And we could talk for 5 hours about that. And then we could go talk for 3 more hours about all the ways we deny things. And so I think that's going to be the trickiest part. Back to your initial with the suffering, like, I don't know if I fully answered your question, but, like, I knew because I had so much body awareness that I didn't know. Like, have you ever what is it? Is it TME, tremor release therapy? Are you
I'm,
familiar? So it's where they actually induce. They started it with research with polar bears, and when they were in highly stressful situations, they tremble. You go into shakes and almost like convulsions. I was doing that. It would happen to me. My at times it would get so bad I would very young, I would get a towel and wrap it around me and sit in a corner, and I would hold it really tight to hold my body still because the shaking. But it's just an informant. And so I knew, and I started to realize that when I was around certain people, certain things started to happen. And so I knew what suffering felt like. The problem was I didn't know the other side, and I didn't know I could get anything else. That didn't come till later. So I was just at the time in suffering. When you're in suffering, before you know there's another way, a pathway, or that you're worthy of it, you're just figuring out, how am I going to survive my suffering? So your whole life, all it's devoted to is, how do I survive?
right.
Well, it doesn't leave any room for anything else.
Not much. That's a great point. Yeah, yeah. And then briefly to that tremor stuff, I have had experience with it myself when I was younger, and I hear my mom actually has a tremor of the head as well, and right these days for the last several years, and
Really?
rather every now and then gets that. And I realized for myself it was induced by an experience. Again, a traumatic or overreaction to a trauma, or a trauma that I was creating within myself, that I was perceiving from the childhood. And at that time, it was surprising. Like I couldn't stop my body from tremoring, and it was so heavy that I just thought, I'm gonna go on fresh air and just walk it off. You, for instance, you said that you just huddled yourself, right? And I was like, it wasn't going away from me. So I went out for a walk, and eventually it stopped, but it was fairly persistent that night. And similar to what you were just saying, the reaction when you're around certain people would then bring it back in some sense. It's like the protective mechanism just started running. And so this is one of the things that I was also mentioning, to take another side turn. Let's see if I can still come back from this.
Okay.
When I was dealing with migraine headaches, and I realized the starting point of that migraine, what I have created in there, what story I've created for myself, and eventually was able to, as I mentioned before, as I was able to pinpoint that experience, what it created within me, and then decided that that was it. I don't need that anymore. And so the migraine headaches literally stopped. I haven't had migraine for over a year.
Yeah.
And it's very different. So very different life when you really take responsibility for something, for part of the story that you create. And when I say you, I mean I, in this case.
Yeah.
So when I took responsibility for a part of the story that I created, something just shifted, and it was like, oh, it's like I did it, so I can undo it, you know? And so there's like a huge relief in that. Again, just a freeing feeling.
Mm.
When you realize that you created it. Sure, somebody else has helped you induce it. Yeah, perhaps angry father or mean mother or a
Mhm.
mean friend or something like that. At the same time, we are the ones who actually create and hold that story and who suffers
Yes.
then, you know.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Uh, a memory's coming to me that because, in hindsight, you see all the different little along the way, all the different teachers and things that happened for
Mhm,
you that you
mhm,
might not have seen. And I was probably 12, and we were at my house growing up, and we used to cut wood in the summertime for the winter for the wood stoves and stuff. And it was
mhm,
myself, my brother, another boy that was 2 years older than him, and then my stepfather and the other one's father. So it was me and my little self with all these boys and men.
Boys. Mhm,
So we were having dinner. Everybody was there. We were having dinner. And, my stepdad, he was just rude and just saying things, and he was being mean. But I had left the table, finished cleaning up, and I went into my bedroom. And my grandma's house was across the field. So I was standing at the window. I would just stand there and look at her house. And so the other father, who was a big, I mean, his hands were as big as my head, is this big towering man, like you would never expect to ever hear anything sensitive or like even necessarily loving. He wasn't mean, but he just wasn't that guy.
mhm,
He came in my room, and he stood right in front of me, and I'm looking up at him because it was a little odd. And he looked at me, and he kind of bent down, and he says, "Tammy," he says, "do you know that that's not right what he's saying to you? Do you know?" Because he would say awful things just about me, and who
mhm.
I was. He's like, "Do you know that that's not true?" And he was just in my face, and I was
Wow.
frightened. And
Wow.
I was like, I don't, and I'm just kind of looking at him and standing there. And I was bracing for impact. Like I thought, honestly, I thought he was going to hit me, that I was ready. So I'm like, okay, I'm like, this is going to freaking hurt, man. He's a big dude. And I'm just like, okay, okay. And doing my thing. And then he took his hands and he took my shoulders like this, and he was like shaking me, and he's like, "You have to know that it's not true. It's very important." He says, "You're going to need to know this later on. You have to learn it's not true what he's saying. You are a good person. You're a good girl. You do your best. You're not a piece of crap because you couldn't lift as heavy of a log as the boys could. And you're not lazy." And he just went through all of it. And he was like shaking me, and he's like, "You have to remember." And he was just drilling it. And I think of that so often
Wow.
because for that man to step in, people say, "Well, how do you know, Tammy? Where do you have faith from? What do you mean you believe in something bigger than you?" Because that's what sent that. There's no other reason for that man that doesn't utter words like that, isn't conscious of things, like for him to come in and do that. He was moved by whatever, God,
Mhm,
higher power, whatever we want to call it. And so my reason for telling the story is that if somebody were to ask me to list some examples of like learning, well, what do you mean by faith? What do you mean by belief? What do you mean there's teachers and messengers and signs? That. And when you wake up and open your awareness, you see them all. And so now, even though that was when I was whatever, before I was 16, now today that serves me. And that helps me have gratitude and forgiveness for what was being done then. That's how seeing that in my awareness of all of the help and guidance and love that I had, then that's what brought me to here. Like, that's the story of it all. And it feeds gratitude, it feeds forgiveness for them, compassion. So it all comes when you wake up and become aware, everything comes to you the more you open. It's not just about wake up, be aware right now. Be brave enough, be aware, but want to see all of it, because there might be some bad stuff that you remember, and there might be tragedy, there might be traumas of childhood, but we can look at it as a whole, and along with the trauma, there's other stuff in there too. But if there's trauma, we're focused on the trauma of the past that, no, I don't want to look, no. And I personally know a lot of people that say, no, I don't want to go to therapy. I don't want to be aware. I need to just forget it. I need to just start here now, move forward and forget it.
Mm-hmm.
But you're leaving your whole self behind. And so loving compassion, loving awareness, it opens it. It doesn't magnify the bad stuff. It brings out the good that happened in the bad stuff.
Again, back to, good or bad, it is what it is, right? And we have to have these experiences in order sometimes for our soul to awaken in this body, because the body is so preoccupied with all those neural impulses, or just impulses from everywhere around us. So many things happening all the time, especially these days. World is quickening, and so much information coming from every angle, and so it is so easy to just like forget that we're actually soul living in this body, experiencing this life. And so maybe we'll speak a little bit to that, where it's like the human versus the being, and in the human being. And you were earlier talking about the wants and the needs, and the human really having the needs, the physical needs, etc. And then the soul part of us, the actual part of us, has mostly like what it wants. It wants to new experience, whichever experience that is. Whether it's bad, whether it's good, doesn't necessarily matter to the soul. It's an experience. And I feel like that's what we're here to share with one another as well, is that experience that we have lived. This is why people watch podcasts or listen to. And this is why we do what we do, and then we have audience to reflect upon what we have done, and then we have more to learn. Speak to that maybe a little bit.
Yes. When I remember that I am the essence of love, which is bigger, the most power, all of that. When I remember that, I'm not focused, nor am I fearing the hard stuff that comes, the trials. I don't ask for them. I don't go out into the world and say, oh yeah, bring it on. Of course not. But I do walk out in the world with my head up, thinking about the love that I am, and how I focus on how beautiful things are. But that, and me knowing and remembering that I am love, that gives me the knowing that anything that does come, it has to pass through that filter, as if my whole being were a love filter, like the air filter in a car.
Beautiful.
Right? Or an air purifier.
Uh-huh.
If I am love, and love is the air purifier, then anything that comes to me, into me, through me, is brought into that, and it's transformed, it's cleaned, and it's made into love. And so even for trials, yeah, it might be, hard, and which is, I think, another one of the big blocks to people is like, oh yeah, that just sounds too good to be true. What do you mean? Like, it just seems too unbelievable. I mean, even when I say it, oh, well, you are love. It's all okay. Anything that comes to you, it just dissolves into the love that you are, and then everything's okay. Okay.
I love how you said that with such enthusiasm.
Yeah. And it might be, you might not be dancing about it when you first get hit with the trial, but like the sooner that you believe it, yeah, you might not be dancing and singing and smiling and, like being a cartoon character when you talk about being love, but it's going to be a lot easier to lay your head down at night and face the day the next day. If you know that that love has your back. Like, I don't worry about driving to my destination because I know that I have a strong vehicle to drive in. So I don't worry about my drive. I might not particularly want to go where I'm going, or it might not be my favorite thing to do that I'm driving to, but I trust my travel there. So the love that you are is the trusted traveling in and through everything that life is. Like, that's
And
how
then,
I,
well, yeah, and then you have a, it's all on well, and then great that you have a strong vehicle to travel in, for instance. But more than that, what you just pointed out is that you have faith in that you are always protected and guided as you go. And this, this part is like oftentimes easier said than done, and a lot of people dismiss it very quickly. And
yeah.
there's a quote that really my ex had said, and it's like, I'm divinely guided and protected, and everything I need and need to know is exactly as I need it. So she would repeat it over and over, and it's like it's just stuck in my head. So, and then one day I sat with that, and I just went over that. I was like, holy shit, that's exactly right. It's like having that faith that there is some sort of divine order that's orchestrating something that I can't see.
Yeah.
Perhaps as a human, let's just say it that way, back to human and being. But my being, my soul knows that. It knows that and it trusts that. Although, in my as Peter Kroneserter likes to say that in my meat suit, I have these sensors, and these sensors have all sorts of feelers, and there's this fear that's scanning for anything possibly that could go wrong. And so whether I have a big truck or that's a reliable truck, if there's no divine order behind this, your truck is going to break
Yep.
at some point, and you're going to be flipping out, right? Let's say. But if you know that you're divinely guided, even when the truck breaks, you still know that you're going to figure it out, whatever it is. So
That's right.
if the consciousness is the one, if that's the one,
Yeah.
it doesn't have anyone to reflect upon anything. It cannot have experience. So what would consciousness do in order to, let's just say bluntly, have fun? It splits itself, right? So, and as we are here, split ourselves into 8 billion pieces, give and take, and on this planet anyway. So then you have probably billions and trillions of other planets and other beings, all sorts of places, all giving information back to one another. Not thinking of it in terms of like little human. If you look at the galaxy, the whole universe really, and or multiverse, who knows, then it becomes a little bit different scale. And then your traumatic events, not insignificant, but
Right.
somewhat smaller to like the total concept of the entire consciousness, right?
Yeah.
But again, every single bit is very important information. So handling it as that, as everything is really important. And so sometimes I have people say that I don't feel unique, I feel ordinary. And so yeah, I mean, you can have that story, and I had that story time before, and until you realize that you are love, like you were saying, and that you are part of that whole same consciousness as the consciousness is, and because of that, you're the only thing that is actually alive. Because you're consciousness,
Yep.
and in that perspective, you are as unique as you can be, and if you take it to the different lens and you look at like perspective of let's say you're one of 8 billion, I mean, that's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Right.
So
Oh, 100%. 100%. If we abandon ourselves, we're abandoning the resource of everything that we're trying to get, which is the big joke, right? Like, we're out there looking for it in, success or degrees or relationships or how people treat us, because that's how we're going to tell. It's like we need to refocus the mechanism that we choose to decide who we are, if we're lovable. It's like I was trying to get to a point where I was approved of, so I knew I was lovable enough, and then I was going to go ask to be loved. But I had to get all that first.
Yeah.
Well, you 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 can't do
Yeah,
that.
it doesn't work that way. It's like that's the old paradigm, right?
Yeah,
That-
like,
That's the old way. And it's like this is what we were told that this is how world works, right? And it isn't. It really isn't. It's just like if you are in that realization, like you're saying, that you are already this presence, you are this love, you are this everything that has ever been created. You already are that. You are abundance as it is. It's just you are part of it all the time. Can you look from that lens?
mhm.
Can you become aware of that that's where you are and look from that lens and see what you will see then?
Yep,
That's the challenge, I
yep.
feel.
Yes, I agree 100%. And my the way that I myself move through that challenge that's worked the best for me is mirror work.
Oh yeah,
Mirror work.
yeah.
Sitting in front of the mirror, because the lens that we look from,
Yeah.
looking into the mirror rather than other people,
Hmm.
right? Because if I think I need approval from other people, I'm looking at them to reflect back to me that I'm good enough.
Yeah.
And if they don't give me whatever feedback, and maybe they weren't in pain and gonna hurt me with their pain, maybe they were having a bad day and they
Hmm.
didn't really make eye contact with me, or they looked away,
Hmm.
or they, brushed me off. Oh,
Hmm.
oh, see, I
Yeah.
looked in the mirror and see I'm not there yet. So, oh, okay, back to the drawing board. So when
Yeah.
we can learn to look in the mirror at our own reflection and see everything we need to say, and I mean, in the beginning, it was affirmations, you know, from a book, and then it's just turned into my own. And then now it's just I just do it all the time anyway. I don't even really need a mirror. It's more of like a thought now, like, reflection to myself. But we got to love ourselves enough to sit with all the awareness.
So my breaking point in this was like possibly many experiences as well, but knowing your self-worth. Like if you went with this concept, how do you know you're worthy? Okay. And so for me, one of the experiences that had um, just brought up this understanding, this inner knowing, not even just understanding, this inner knowing
Mhm, mhm,
was a breakup of a marriage, was the betrayal in the marriage, was what woke me up. It's like slapped me through my face so hard that I was like, okay, so away with this perfection, away with this trying to make everything work right and be right everywhere in the right time, and then show up for everyone and not for myself, and do this martyrship kind of thing, and because I was doing more things and I obviously because I didn't feel worthy, so I was trying to do more and more and more and more in order to show that I am worthy to someone else.
yep,
Where I didn't show it to begin with was to myself that I am already that and didn't realize that. So when that happened, when the betrayal and the heartbreak, really heart wrenching break happened, this is
yeah,
where I felt that I was open finally to seeing that I am lovable. Not only am I lovable, but I just like appreciate myself for who I am, who I'm learning to be. And when I say myself, not just talking to the physicality of my being. I'm mainly really talking actually to my soul because I know my soul's intentions, and I've always known those soul intentions, but it was oftentimes overpowered by the masking with from safety perspective of the mind trying to create some sort of a feeling of safety again. So being in
mm,
that state more than not. So I was curious for you, where was some sort of a breaking point where you have realized that you love yourself? Because obviously before you have not.
mhm, yeah, yeah. I think probably the most prominent one was my stepfather that I was raised by from 4, and then I was 17, and he was a or was he was a hunter, deer hunting, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so at 17, he disowned me because my boyfriend at the time, that then became my husband and my daughter's father, he broke the rules. My stepfather broke the rules. He was not granted permission any longer to hunt on the gun club that my boyfriend's father was the manager of. So
Oh.
I did not force my boyfriend to get him permission. And so I got disowned by that. He said, "You
Mm-hmm.
are as good as dead to me. You're choosing him, not me." He made it just, that's what it turned into. So that happened when I was 17, and that was it. I was put out. And so then when I don't know the years, but around 40-ish,
Mm-hmm.
he got brain cancer. And my brother called me and he said, "Listen, like, he's sick. I think you should come." So I thought about it, back and forth. And so I said, I said, "Okay, I'll go and I'll go see him." He didn't want to see me. He turned me away. He said, "I don't want to see her." I thought he was asking for me, but he wasn't. He didn't want to see me. Okay. 2 years after that, it had gone through his whole body. My brother calls me again. Now, at this time, my brother's living in Alaska. My brother calls me again and said, "This is it. It's just a matter of time." He says, "I think you should come for yourself and for him." Again, I thought about it. So I go. And so, just for context,
Mm-hmm.
growing up, he was highly inappropriate. So I walk in. He's on his deathbed. They brought him out just to the couch to the living room, but he's literally on his deathbed. From this point, after this, he died 48 hours after this meeting. I walk in. My brother brought a chair over for me to sit next to. So I walk up to the couch, and he looks up at me, riddled with cancer, gonna die 48 hours later, looks me up and down. He's like, "Oh, you look good. You took care of your body. Oh, wow. You look really good. That's just totally just commented on that I looked good in my body, that I was, pretty." Okay. And so I sat down, and I was there for maybe a half an hour. And basically all he did was tell me everything that I had done wrong, and it was my fault, and that he's lived a really good life. And thank God I was not in his life. Just, he was no different than he was years before. And
Interesting.
I'm in my 40s. I hadn't seen him since I was 17.
Wow.
So basically just, I was wrong and bad and whatever.
Mm.
So I leave, and when I walked out, by the time I got to my truck and got in and I'm starting to drive, I realized at that point how attached I was to getting his approval. That
Mm.
I made him, and I had I wasn't conscious of it. I had created a story that when I walked in there, he was going to just love me and say, "I'm sorry. I love you." Tell me the things that I wanted to hear from him.
Mm.
And so I thought that I was walking into that. And so when I walked in and he started talking like that, it was like walking into a wall. And it was
Mm.
that punch in the gut kind of feeling that I had always had. So when I got back in my truck, that was probably my biggest realization of my behavior,
Mm.
of seeking the attention, and how foolish that is. Foolish, I say that lightly, just towards myself, that it just gave me the lesson of, you know, you don't live for them. Like, who are you? Everything we're talking about. Who are you? What are you? Are you going to put everything on what he says? Like, are you going to
Mm.
live by that, or you? And that started a sort of like waking and awareness into, all right, what else is here? Like, maybe there's something else. Like, maybe I'm not bad. Maybe the cause of all of this is not somehow that I'm bad, or this dark cloud that seems to bring a storm every time I'm near people. I mean, what
Mm.
else am I going to think? Because they're all real happy and going through life. And I'm the only one that seems to have a problem. So I must be the dark cloud, but now I know it's because I was light, and it's because I was bright, and I wanted to love, and I was like I am now when I was 7. But shut up, Tammy. God.
No. Yeah, wow, goodness. So that's that, that innocence that the soul has, that the soul comes to the world with.
Hmm.
And that, that's what then referred to later on as the naivety of the human being, right?
Right.
Is that soulfulness, that knowing that, hey, I'm just here to, embody this love, so what else are we doing here?
That's
Oh
right.
no, you don't know this world, man. So let me introduce you to this greed and to a fear that's
Mhm.
coming through every person, and this is what it's gonna feel like. It's gonna be awesome. Yeah, it's like, huh?
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
about that. you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I feel like there's a lot of this, I don't know if maybe a lot of people have that, but similar with me, as like I felt super naive in the sense that
Mm.
people were going to have my back, that people were going to not betray me in any way. They're going to be playful. Together we'll create something that is worthwhile.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, and just creativity, and then you get into this again, years between of about, like I said, about the 6 or 7 to about
Mm.
40, I feel, where it's like a shit show, for lack of a better word. And then you finally stop, and then you go like, what the heck was that?
Yeah.
Whew, that was tough.
Yeah.
Didn't expect that to happen, right?
Yeah.
And it's like nobody warns you about that, of course. And in some sense, I think if we were warned, um, I don't know, it might be boring. We might be also so protective, and I don't know. But again, with a bit of a humor, I would say, maybe just understanding that
Mhm.
if I am in this reality as a soul in this body for this lifetime, during this lifetime, as this
Mhm.
avatar, that's my personal understanding. I know that there are other people that
Mhm.
have different understanding about life and the way it works. But
Mhm.
if I'm in this moment, in this being,
Mhm. Mhm.
as a soul, I want to play. I
Yeah.
want to have fun, and I want to learn.
Yeah.
And anything else that happens, as we were talking at the beginning about suffering, is part of the story. Sure,
Yeah.
I'll accept that. And again, the lesson there is to not attach to that feeling.
Yeah.
And the reason I felt for most of my life is that we attach to suffering personally, is that we are not shown as humans. We are not shown better example. And
Mhm.
for those of us who are shown better example, congratulations. So truly, just you lucky in
Yeah.
some sense as well. Um, I also, I mean, there's so much stuff that we could talk about for hours and hours.
Yeah.
And I know that Peter Crone has a big following as well. And some of the videos that I have seen already, it's just genuine. Hey, I'm here, and I hold space for you. I
Yeah.
see you. You're
Yeah.
here. I'm here. We're
Yeah.
here.
And I agree. I feel that too. I've not like I haven't been a part of a mastermind, or I haven't done, I haven't been to any of his lives or anything, but that's why I listen. I'm very selective about I'm very, very selective about my
Mm.
environment.
Maybe we'll go next into that. Like, why are we selective about things?
That's a big, I think, aside from the literally waking up,
Yeah.
that has to come in like right with love, compassion, because it's not denial, it's not running away, it's not hiding from things that don't resonate. It's
Hmm.
about when you can make a choice,
Hmm.
make a choice. There's
Hmm.
going to be times when you're around people that are not, you know, just don't jive, and you're kind of like, okay, I got to get through this. I mean, I have 2 clients like that, that there's just things, but okay, but I
Hmm.
just remember that's not what I'm here for. And so you have to have like that filter. But
Hmm.
when I have a choice, yeah, I don't, if something's not a full yes, it doesn't happen.
Exactly, and I love that. Not a full yes. Yeah, and this is where people like myself, early people pleasers, no more. But that was the MO, really, was like, okay, if that's where you want to go, let's do that. That's fine. Yeah, I'm open to anything. It's like, yeah, it's like, what are you, a pushover? No, it's like, not again, it goes back to not knowing your worth. And so when you know your worth, when you're understanding that why you came here, what you came here to do, you have the clarity around what is on purpose in your life and what is not on purpose in your life. It's like when
Mm-hmm.
you are in that space that you were talking to, like some things are just absolute yes, and some things are just like if it's a maybe, it's a no.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so I'm just gonna not even gonna waste my time. It's a
Mm-hmm.
maybe. It's like, okay, well, obviously don't feel strongly about this, so I'm just gonna write that off. And so yeah, one of these things again about this podcast has been for me is like that's a hello, are we starting yet? Are we gonna do this? Come on, you're ready. What are
Yeah.
you waiting for?
Yep.
I don't know, I'm not sure. I have too much going on.
Yeah.
No, the
Yep.
messages are waiting. You know,
Yeah.
if you don't say them, someone else will. So that's all it
That's
is.
right. Yeah.
And yeah, go ahead.
The other thing that I love a lot that I follow, and something I wrote down too, is which it ties to what you spoke of in the beginning about body awareness and intuition. And you posed the question to me that, well, how do you know? That can go, well, how do I know if I'm suffering? How do I know if love is real? If it's really, it's the body, it's, well, how does it feel? What does a yes feel like? What does no feel like? Again, there's a lot of practices for that. And yeah, it's staying firm to that, like really firm. Once you know that you're allowed to, I had to learn that I was allowed to do that because the programming and the lie and the old story that I was believing and keeping alive was, well, if everybody that I need approval from
Mm-hmm.
doesn't say, yes, Tammy, it's okay if you go feel that way. It's okay. It's different. Then I didn't move forward. Well,
Mm-hmm.
then you're never going to please everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's tied into that. And yeah, the worthiness is huge, because if we don't believe that we're worthy of a yes, then why would we? And then the other thing that's probably, it's another rabbit hole and probably a whole nother podcast, but like in terms of desires, whether it be the desire to write a book, do a podcast, or do something, I believe fully and wholly with every part of my being that the desire that comes, it's already there. It's fulfilled already. In other
Mm-hmm.
words, the desire isn't the starting point when you feel it. That's not the starting point of, oh, let me go figure out if this is for me.
Mm-hmm.
If it comes to you and it feels right and it resonates like this, like, oh, I want to do a podcast. I think a lot about these things. I want to talk about these things. That means that the availability for it, the space for it to happen, it's already created because you have the desire to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's, I think, I don't know, a high percentage of people turn away because either they don't feel worthy of the desire, or it's like, oh, who am I to do that? Well,
Yes.
you're the one to do it because it came to you to do it.
Yes. 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 And that's, that can feel like easier said than done because a lot of times, obviously, if we're using that filter again,
Yeah.
that I have viewed myself, this persona through for
Mhm.
most of the life, then that part isn't worthy, right? Of taking whatever idea further.
Right.
But if you look from the lens of being the soul in development and curious about life, then you are it because, like you just said, it came to you.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's
You're
there's the
grounded.
beauty in that. Again, it's like this is where we either turn to thriving or we just shut off completely, and typically goes into the latter for a lot of people anyway.
Mhm.
And for some of us, there's some people, and that was in that space for a long time as well. And so for at this point, it's like, okay, well, let's go, let's do
Yeah.
this, let's do that. It's like
Mhm. Yeah.
this is the creativity creation or comes through when you're in that state of love. I was always envious of people who were creative earlier on. It's like, how are you so creative? Like, how are you doing that?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I never realized that I was full of all sorts of blockages and stuckness and
Mhm.
emotionally, mentally, and even physically. And it's just like things,
Yeah.
ideas and things weren't flowing to me because there was interruption. There was no flow. And
Yeah.
so once that opened, once it changed, now it's like, oh, and I could also do this. Oh, and I could do that. I could do that.
Yeah.
It's just now it becomes like overwhelming. It's like, which one is first?
Yeah. So if I just think about awakening and coming into awareness, a pathway comes to mind in the woods. And the pathway is there. It's mowed in the woods. But
Mm-hmm.
there's some branches down in the
Mm-hmm.
path. Maybe some are big. Maybe you might even need help moving some.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the debris. That's the stuff where, oh, I see that log right there. Oh, that's from that time when I was a kid and this happened. And then I believed this story and then I acted from that story and that's where my life went. Okay, let me pick it up and move it. Like it's a lie. All right, let me move that. Let me take a couple steps. Oh, there's a big log. Whoa. And I might need some help. I might need to call in some friends. I might need to get some help processing this, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, no matter what, when you love yourself and you're willing to be on the path, you'll move the branches that you can. You'll get help moving the ones that you can't. But the path is already there because
Yeah.
we are the path.
Yeah. I love
You
that. I love the analogy. Yeah.
know, and
And
patience.
so to add to that again, it's like the our ability to be awake, or like you say, and aware, as we were talking about this whole podcast,
Mm-hmm.
leads then to removing these obstacles that have been prominent in our lives. And as those obstacles are removed, we begin to see and again becoming aware of the essence that we
Mm-hmm.
are, that is love, that is compassion, that is caring, that is appreciation, gratitude, and the
Mm-hmm.
consciousness in its best, in some sense, or divine. And so when you have the realization, when I had the realization, that's what I am, it allowed me to shift through more of these. And then let me say it this way, it's allowing me to shift through these times when something comes up from some sort of a trigger, something happens, some situation, some event in life. And when you're facing that fear, when you're facing that realness in some sense of the situation, really you're facing your mind's story about the situation. And when you realize that difference, the very subtle difference, again, like Peter Crump points out, when you realize that subtle difference between what you thinking is the story and what the story actually is, you begin to feel that presence. And this is what begins to feel a lot more freeing. And this is where I want audience here to notice this and then see for themselves that becoming, throwing out the questions, becoming curious, becoming aware of what's happening, awakening to a potentiality of your being. That is the always loving presence. I'm not saying we in these human bodies don't experiment and do crazy things. We do. And
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that you have to go be mean about that. However you go about life. Of course, that's a choice too. But again,
Mm-hmm.
finding for yourself where those points meet, like where is the difference between, are you acting as the scared mind that is trying to protect your body, or are you acting as the soul that is aware of the loving essence that you are?
Yeah. And if within the moment of willingness to become awake and aware, you just at the bare minimum accept that you might be, in fact, the essence of love, then you'll look at things from a lens of love.
Mhm.
And so, whether we're in the part of Okay, there's awareness. Wow, man, I got a lot of stuff to look at, but I'm going to look at it through a lens of love. And no matter what it looks like, it could be gruesome but okay, if you do that, and so you're looking at it through the lens of love and all the debris and everything that needs to happen, all the situations, you're seeing them from love, that's going to automatically like sort of bring you down into, it's going to start compassion. It's going to bring like this down to, it's that drop of the shoulders is, okay, there's compassion. Okay. All right, here we
Where you
are.
start to decrapify.
Yes. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a
And
mental clearing, right? Of course, but
totally. And then so from there, maybe if you accept or can begin to accept that there's a lens of love for you to look through, then perhaps the concept of believing that you are the embodiment of love might come a little easier. It might not seem so like, oh, yeah, your head's in the clouds, Tammy. Like, yeah, whatever. Okay. The eye roll and the walk away, like, that girl's crazy, man. Like, you can start to sort of accept things a little bit more. But yeah, the love is key. None of it works without it.
absolutely.
None of it works without it.
There's
And
one of the things that Peter Crone talks about, the love, something about like the love doesn't need anything, or how does he say that? If you're in a space of protecting yourself or something, that is the game of the mind. That is the game of the ego, the construct, whatever you want to call that. When you're in a state of love and being full of love, and there's no boundary really. There's no
right.
need for one.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no judgment, there's no criticism.
Yeah.
So,
That's a big point. That's a big point. Yeah. It's one of my people, Muji, that I follow. Like, it's if the heart is always leading the mind, you're more likely to stay on the path of love. But it's when the mind is leading the heart, which living from ego, whatever we want to call it, but like the mind is great and the mind can figure things out and do math problems and stuff. Great. Perfect. It's like, know where you're using everything, but that's that just conscious awareness. So there's like, which I mean, I don't even, because like, all right, we're awake and aware to everything around us. And then there's the awareness of, like we've been talking about, ourselves and what's out there and what's happening. But the ultimate awareness is, who am I and how am I processing everything and how is it all coming out? And that leads to just full 100% responsibility. But it's easier to be self-responsible when you love yourself.
Yes.
Because otherwise I'm responsible for the mess and I don't want to be responsible for the mess.
Yeah, like, but who is it that you don't want to be responsible for?
Yeah, you're right.
That's the mind.
The mind.
Yeah. So
that's the trick.
Yeah. So what can we do for ourselves on a daily basis? When I find myself triggered by event, by a person saying something, what can I do at that moment to go back to awareness, to stay awake to my life? What can I do to bring myself back to that state? Because obviously, if something has just triggered me, now all the physiological reactions that are happening in the body, the release of the hormones of stress, are gonna overpower any kind of logic reasoning. Or any kind of a feeling, the logic reasoning is going to overpower because now it's protection. Okay, now I'm protecting myself full on, right? Guard. And so if I find myself in that space, can I give myself some sort of sign? Yes, I'll set myself in the morning. If today or when today something happens that makes me feel uneasy, makes me feel uncomfortable, makes me feel angry, makes me feel frustrated, any of those things. If I feel those things today, say myself in the morning, let's say, as I wake up, I'm going to pause. I'm going to take a breath or 10, whatever.
Yep.
And I'm going to basically just be with that for as long as necessary to regain the awareness that I had before that. So then, what would you do for yourself in these kind of situations again, with when you find yourself, triggered by something or circumstance or anything like that?
Yeah, for me, it's body awareness, and so I trust that my body will always tell me if I'm in a dangerous situation or negative or any situation I would rather not be in. That's not a good, healthy situation. My body will tell me. And the other piece was that my listening to my body keeps me out of conversations in my mind and out of the chatter. And so if I'm focused on how my body feels, then I'm not tuned in to the chatter of, what everybody else is thinking or what might be happening that I could be right or wrong about. So it saves me the whole journey down a road that might not even be there. And then from there is just really, I started by talking to myself. And I always love the practice of, if I'm going through something, of first of all talking to my younger self. Like, what do you need? My body feels tense. What do you need right now? And if I'm really in a low or I'm kind of really going through something, I'll just stop and pause and think, like, okay, like I'll picture myself younger. In the beginning, I actually carried a picture of myself at different stages, like 7 and later on. And I just talked to her. What do you need? What do you think we should do? What do you think we should do right now? And I always get an immediate answer. And then the other one is, well, what would I tell somebody that I love? What would I tell them right now to get to what they need or how they could feel better or to be able to read themselves? And I would tell them to connect with themselves. I would sit with them. I would be patient, kind. I set an intention to drop release the shaming and the blame and the what's the matter with you? Why are you letting this bother you? It shouldn't bother you. All the shoulds and shouldn'ts and all that.
So kind of like speaking to your obviously younger self, like you were saying, in a sense that as though you come down to the child's level and then look him in the eye and say, hey, you matter, you are important. And like it was in the movie Help, was that? You is kind, you is anyway, so that was the
Smart, you is kind, you is important. Oh, that's so good.
and that nurturing with which she's saying this to that little child is really like how I would imagine that every one of us could talk to ourselves in that sense. Is that little lost child and then pain, hurting or whatever is experiencing, and just say, I'm gonna be here with you, and I'm gonna let you feel that, and allow it to basically be processed. Because I feel like a lot of us get stuck exactly there, is that we are taught to resist these experiences, and especially the negative ones, obviously. And or if it's a positive experience, somebody tells you that you did something really well and you dismiss it, you say, oh, that was no big deal, right? That's what we're taught to do, on the contrary there. So either we push it away or we are resisting to it, and then I feel that when you're saying the example about paying attention to your body, like what does the body feel like, that's beautiful. Again, I mean, for me it starts with the breath, and that's, again, it's embodying, right? So when you go to the breath, that's already paying attention to your body. And in my practice is a lot about feel what you feel and release it, be it, as you say, good or bad, doesn't matter, right or wrong. I don't necessarily like to name those because those are only opinions. And so if I have a feeling that is coming through me, allow myself to feel that feeling in my body until it's not there.
Yeah.
And it's, again, for most of us, it's easier said than done because we are not brought up that way, or we haven't been led to deal with it like that. And this is a big thing with especially, I would say, men. Like, women are a lot more well versed in feeling their emotions and, you know, talking about them and letting them pass. For men, is a lot more about be strong, don't cry, you know, keep going, and I don't know whatever else is said to the boys and to young men. And it's sad at the same time.
Oh yeah.
And then, not surprisingly, that we have parents the way we have. It's like, you know, they couldn't have done any better, you know. It's like, you know, my father was also taken as a, you know, for lack of a better explanation, as a piece of shit almost by his parent or parents sometimes. So, but again, not for their fault. It's just, again, as we know, it's just that's how we thought of ourselves, through somebody else's lens.
That's right. Yes.
And the correction here, I feel, comes with opening ourselves to the possibility that we could be loved. And more than that, that we are.
You're right.
That we are love in its essence.
And that's all it takes, is to be open to the possibility of it. Those words that you've spoken, that right there, just the possibility. That's all it takes.
Yeah.
You don't have to become a scholar. You don't have to be able to recite every word of every scripture or every famous no.
Yeah.
Just be open to the possibility that you are. Just start there, try there. And then see what happens. Because that's all it takes. Because any of us that are sitting here, when we were at our bottom, man, my bottom, it was a little flicker. There was no like, you know, yeah, okay, come and like big, you know, grand moment of like all of a sudden I had this peace because I opened my eyes and decided to. No, it happened gradually. And I will say too, another thing about the younger self, the other thing that does for me personally, it reminds me, number one, it reminds me that it's not true now. Because it's her that still believes the lie of the less than. And so if I go to her to do the check-in, I'm the one that knows I'm loved now. I'm the 55-year-old me that knows I'm loved now. This is the beauty of evolving and going back and looking and having forgiveness and seeing everything as for us, and gratitude. I mean, that's what gratitude is. Gratitude covers everything. And so it's no longer me. I am the one, and I am the only one that can tell her that it's safe. There's no one else on the planet that can tell me and instill in me the belief that I am love. I am the only person on the planet that can do that. God can't even do that. That's free will. So I'm literally the only one for the job. There's no amount of degrees or things or whatever. I've tried it.
That's for sure. That's for sure. You know, as you're talking, I'm feeling the presence of Greg Braden, and another one of the scholars of these times, and his way to bring himself back to the presence of now, and the presence of being in that loving state, is to just touch the heart. And yes, that's one of the things that he does. Like, you know, if you touch the heart and you feel the beat, and you just be present with that, just close your eyes, touch the heart, be with that heartbeat. And then I would expand on that as you breathe in slowly, breathe out slowly, with your heart beating. Feel that beat, and feel that expansion of your lungs, that contraction of your lungs, and allow it to be that way. And just feel with each breath what happens there. As you're breathing in slowly, feel your heart expanding, and the field around you in the heart field expanding, just getting bigger and bigger. And encompasses your entire being. And then it gets bigger even then, and it encompasses the entire world, the entire universe, and now your heart is like huge now. So,
Whoa.
yeah, that brings the chills into the body, and that to me, that's like instant, like I'm there. Like I'm feeling that connection, with everything in that space. So I love that practice. And then the fact when, Greg talks about there's the four primary, and then there's a bunch of others ways of emotions that we can perceive to know that we are in this state. And it's gratitude, appreciation, care, and compassion. And these are the four main ones he uses, but there are others, as I say. But I love that. It's like this was one of the ways that pain went away. From I was in pain 0 to 10, I was in 10. I don't necessarily get to 10 very often. It's mostly like 8, maybe 7, 8, 9, maybe. I never call it 10, but 10 is like I'm crying, I'm hurting so much.
Yeah.
And I was in 10. And I had a thought that I needed to check on my kid who was driving across the country and just make sure that she's safe at that night. And as I started thinking of her and started to write her text, barely seeing what I was typing, kind of thing, but started to feel care for her. I immediately noticed, as I sent her text, I immediately noticed the pain went from like 10 to like 6, just in those few seconds. And I was like, I noticed that, and I was like, whoa. And then I expanded on that feeling, and the pain was gone. I'm not kidding you, within a minute. 0. And so in that moment, I was like, okay, I don't need any proofs. This was plenty of proof for me. So, just being in that state.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. No, and that practice, I mean, I've similar, like I'll touch, but that was different. And I think a lot of it was the way that you instructed, like to feel the heartbeat as you breathe in. That was something like it's not just feeling the lungs fill with the air, it's feel your heartbeat while you're breathing in. That is like
you listen carefully. Yeah, this is part of the practice with my students. This is how we start classes. Besides the body awareness, and then we go into the breath awareness, to the expansion of your loving basically. And from there goes to the further practice. But that's like the essence, really. And I feel like this is something that may be helpful to really anyone to just correct course back in if you are in some sort of disarray or difficult situation.
Yeah, I think it would be something great if you wanted to share it on the book club. I think they'd appreciate that. That was big.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
I feel like especially the moms, especially like they would really, it just it connects.
Yeah. Fun. So much fun, Tammy.
Yes.
Love this. All
right. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Take good care of you.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Talk soon. Bye.
And if you have enjoyed this podcast, give us a like, subscribe. We have more coming out. And in the next one, we'll talk more about self-acceptance and loving the self. What is really standing in the way of that? And what we can do to reveal this loving presence that is already within. And if you are curious about any of the practices that I mention in these podcasts, I have online programs that are available for purchase. And you can also schedule an online coaching call with me or Tammy. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you around next time.